Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I declare this briefing session open at 6:30 p.m. The proceedings of the briefing session are electronically recorded in accordance with the council's recording and live streaming of council meetings council policy, except for matters of a confidential nature. The guide in determining those matters of a confidential nature shall be in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Please note, briefing sessions are only audio recorded and audio live streamed only, in accordance with Council's policy. Meetings will also be made available on the City's website following the meeting. The official record of the meeting will be the written minutes kept in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and any relevant regulations. Members of the public are reminded it's a requirement under the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2013 to act in a courteous and respectful manner when in the Council chamber. You are asked to show respect to anyone who is exercising their right to ask questions of the Council and or deliver public statements. I ask that that respect also extend to those people wherever they are on the city premises while waiting for or having taken their opportunity to ask questions or deliver a public statement. Under the local law, a person must not create a disturbance by interrupting or interfering with the orderly conduct of proceedings. This includes expressing approval or dissent or by conversing by any other means. Using electronic recording devices to record anyone or the meeting is also prohibited under the city's local law. I also would like to remind members of the public to show proper respect to the city's elected members and staff during these proceedings. The next item of business is declarations of interest. Do any councillors or staff have any declarations for items on tonight's agenda? No, I have one declaration for myself. It's for item 12.9, wildlife protection. It's an interest that may affect impartiality, as I am currently the treasurer of the Friends of Yellowgonga Regional Park, which has an interest in the management of wildlife within the regional park. Are there any other interest declarations? In that case, we'll move to the next item of business, which is deputations. We have a number of deputations which have been approved for tonight. So deputation requests are to be made in writing and addressed to the Mayor. A time period of up to 15 minutes is set aside for each deputation. Deputation shall not exceed 5 members of the public in number, and only 3 of those persons shall be at liberty to address elected members and to respond to questions the elected members may have. So our first deputation tonight is from Ms. Suzanne Apps and Lynn Manuel. If you'd like to come forward and give your presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Councillor Pizzey for bringing this motion forward. The community generally appreciates her persistence in trying to address an issue which has been raised repeatedly but not effectively resolved. Before speaking to the city's recommendations and outcomes we are seeking, I want to clearly outline the community's concerns because these issues are not fully identified or quantified in the report. Slide 2. Across the city of Joondalup, we are fortunate to still have pockets of bushland capable of sustaining native kangaroo population. But as urban density increases, these areas are shrinking. Connectivity is being lost, green corridors are being cut in half, the natural pathways kangaroos have used for generations are disappearing. Kangaroos do not read signs or interpret fencing. They simply follow instinctive movements routes to forage, find water, and for young males to disperse and establish new territory. This is how kangaroos end up on our roads. Slide 3. As clearly detailed in the RSPCA podcast released in May of this year, the risk to our peri-urban kangaroos is extremely challenging, but there are actions that can be taken to reduce the risk to humans and kangaroos alike. Did you know that up to 70% of all kangaroo deaths occur due to vehicle collisions? Slide 4. The RAC this year reported that in the first 6 months of 25, 2,648 animal collisions occurred in WA, with the highest number attributed to kangaroos. The 4 years figures show a 10% increase. The majority are on country roads, but the further incursion of urban development into rural areas is considered to be a contributing factor. Slide 5. The RSPCA notes that good proactive planning is critical in reducing collisions, and also notes that infrastructure options like fencing can play a role, especially on some of the more problematic roads. Kangaroos are most active at night. Their peak movements are at dawn and dusk, and coincide exactly with peak morning and evening traffic. This equals poor visibility plus heavy traffic plus fast-moving animals equals a high-risk scenario. Woodvale Drive is a prime example. What was once a farm track became a local road and today functions as a major commuter shortcut, avoiding multiple sets of lights on Ocean Reef Road. This road will further increase in traffic volumes with the subdivision, East Wanneroo District development, and most likely with the approval of the supersized commercial retail centre. As density increases, so do the collisions. Slide 6. Okay, some data. Since November 2024, when this motion was put forward, since the motion was originally presented, the community have recorded at a minimum, and I'm saying at a minimum, just on Woodvale Drive, 38 deaths, and that's not including the joeys. 10 were euthanised and 5 joeys were orphaned. In addition, in the area, 10 kangaroos along Whitford Avenue, that's that area from Duffy Terrace to Wanneroo Road. 9 on Wanneroo Road, and that's from Whitford Avenue up to Woodvale Drive. 2 on Duffy Terrace, plus multiple deaths from fence injuries within Duffy House. Thankfully, no humans were injured. These numbers are approximate because no single agency collects all data, and several agencies do not collect it at all. As the saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. For context, in the past 12 months, the community recorded 67 sightings of one or more kangaroos on the verge or on the roads bordering Yellowlonga. These are only the incidences reported and do not include animals that were later found deceased. That is 67 plus near misses. Slide 7. All right, the true cost. The cost associated with each kangaroo collision can add up quite quickly. So let's have a look at it. Carcass collection and disposal at Tamla Park by the City of Joondalup, I suppose about $100. Police attendance and euthanasia, that's about $500. If you think about it, two cops taking an hour to come out, probably cheap. Euthanasia by injection and disposal, that's $500. That's because you can't dispose of a kangaroo that's been injected at Tamla Park. It has to be cremated. Say an animal control agent comes out, well, that's about $250, but they're volunteers, they don't even get paid. Call centre, well, the City of Joondalup, I suppose, let's say $5 every time someone rings in, you need to refer them to wildcare. Veterinary care, rehabilitation, joey transport, well, that's ongoing and significant, $2,000 minimum. Vehicle damage, substantial. Emotional trauma to drivers, residents, volunteers, can't quantify it. The cost of collision damage on Woodvale Drive alone for the past 12 months is estimated around $18,000, and that does not include the unquantifiable emotional toll. Most of the cost does not fall on the city, of course, but they fall on the residents and the volunteers. There is a policy vacuum and there are consequences. You, our council, have already acknowledged there is a problem. You have supported the development of a kangaroo management plan by DBCA for Yellowlonga Regional Park, which Joondalup co-manages. And tonight you're reviewing a report on the mitigation infrastructure. However, the city itself doesn't have its own fauna or kangaroo management plan. Without one, decisions are made without considering the impact of wildlife. So, avoidable problems are created, volunteers bear the brunt, road incidents continue to increase. I'll give you some examples. Duffy House. Fencing was installed with incorrect specifications. Wrong height, wrong top wire, wrong placement. It had to be removed and replaced. The area is now overmowed, dusted, filled with roadwork debris, sprayed with glyphosate, none of it which is appropriate being right in the regional park, and there is no way to keep out the roos unless you put a 2-metre high mesh fencing. 95 Woodvale Drive, you've heard me whinge about this for ages. It took 18 months to fence this site set for subdivision. The community installed a temporary fencing to demonstrate the effectiveness of a fence. Since it was installed, not a single collision has occurred. A clear management plan would have prevented this delay. The Yellowlonga proposed kangaroo management plan has now been downgraded by DBCA to an action plan, great, leaving no policy basis for consistent decision making. When kangaroos are not deliberately considered in planning, they are unintentionally pushed onto our roads and into the residents' pathway. Yes, I acknowledge, slide 8. I'll go back to slide 8, thank you. We acknowledge that some of the fencing has been upgraded by DBCA. They will reduce some of the collisions on Woodvale Drive. However, there are no improvements listed for Pinnaroo, and the underlying issues still remain. Slide 9. What the community is asking the council to do: adoption of a fauna management plan, City of Joondalup to advocate more strongly with DBCA and the state government for effective kangaroo management plan, provision of supports to our volunteer groups who assist on the ground, recognition of the financial and emotional cost of volunteers and residents, and installation of infrastructure that reduces collisions. I will now hand over to Lynn Manuel, who is a volunteer wildlife rescuer with Wildcare, and she will talk about the benefits of virtual fencing.
Good evening, everybody. Virtual fencing on Woodvale Drive. So what is virtual fencing? Electronic roadside devices installed 25 to 50 metres, alternatively on both sides, along high-risk roads. They're triggered by headlights. When a car approaches, the devices activate in sequence. One side, the other side, one side, the other side. Light and sound cues, flashing lights and high-pitched sounds alert animals to pause. It also, over time, deters animals from even grazing close to the fences. It's active at dusk and dawn. It operates during peak wildlife movement times and also, as Suzanne said, which is often also peak traffic times. Virtual fencing offers a promising solution to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions, to enhance road safety and protect local wildlife populations along Woodvale Drive. These fences are best suited for high-risk wildlife corridors like those near Yellowlonga Regional Park. The benefits of virtual fencing: reduction in wildlife vehicle collisions. Trials in various regions, including Victoria, and in 2021 in Brabham, have shown that virtual fencing can significantly reduce the number of wildlife fatalities on roads. For instance, one trial alone reported a 50% reduction in wildlife vehicle collisions, particularly for kangaroos. This is crucial for areas like Woodvale Drive, where wildlife is frequently at risk during traffic. This also means a 50% reduction of damage to cars, and most importantly, a 50% less chance of somebody being injured or killed. In 2021, development in Brabham tripled and the toll on local kangaroos escalated. Murray Road had an average of 5 kangaroo deaths a week. Wildlife Care WA met with the City of Swan, who agreed to install the fencing. Numbers decreased dramatically to just 3 deaths a month. The posts are still there now as development continues. Cost-effective and easy to install, virtual fencing systems are relatively easy to install and do not require significant alterations to the landscape. This makes them a viable option for local councils looking to implement wildlife protection measures without extensive infrastructure changes. Community and environmental safety. By reducing the number of wildlife vehicle collisions, virtual fencing not only protects animals, it enhances safety for driver. This is especially relevant in urban areas like Woodvale, where interactions between wildlife and vehicles is common. The triggering action of virtual fencing also alerts drivers to the possibility of kangaroos being in the area and reminds them to slow down. Virtual fencing systems can be monitored and adjusted based on their effectiveness. This adaptability allows for continuous improvement in wildlife protection strategies as more data is collected on their performance. The City of Wanneroo is currently exploring the implementation of virtual fencing along their high-risk roads in the area. This, combined with the City of Joondalup, could address the rising number of wildlife road fatalities and enhance safety for both wildlife and motorists across a broader area. Information from Wildlife Safety Solutions, who are the suppliers of virtual fencing, and Bat Rescue WA, who contacted several specialised bat rescue organisations across Australia, state there is no negative impact on bats or nocturnal wildlife. Our virtual fencing has been installed in 61 locations across Australia, including one in Brabham and one in Karratha. Surely this is an indication that they work. In conclusion, virtual fencing presents a modern, cost-effective and environmentally friendly approach to mitigating wildlife vehicle collisions, making it a valuable tool for protecting wildlife and motorists along Woodvale Drive and similar areas, while serving as a pilot project for wider adoption across Perth's northern suburbs. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have a small amount of time left for questions, so I'll go to Councillor O'Neill first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your speeches this evening. It's informative. I've just got one question in relation to any knowledge you may have with the research that you have. Where is in the City of Joondalup the highest rate of incidents and interactions with kangaroos and motorists? Do you know?
Woodvale Drive.
Woodvale Drive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Apps and Manuel, are you aware that the City is currently in the process of constructing a colour-bond fence within private property to prevent kangaroos that normally are in the regional park from accessing Woodvale Drive?
The fence is already up.
Yep.
Yep, we're aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? That's it. Thank you for your time, both of you. Our next presentation is from Mr. Michael Rose from the Marmion Sorrento Duncraig Progress and Ratepayers Association, along with Jeffrey Boyland, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. This is with regards to principally the unhosted short-stay rental accommodations. I might start with saying a few words about fears. Two fears are very prevalent in life, the fear of death and the fear of speaking in public. Being in my 80th year, fear of death is something which is becoming more and more important, but the fear of speaking in public doesn't go away. Also, because of my previous experience as a councillor for the City of Wanneroo, I managed to learn two important aspects of fulfilling that duty. One was from the town planner, Oscar Drescher, and he educated me in the importance of long-term thinking. And perhaps for the newer councillors, this might be a good opportunity to think about this. That in your deliberations, we got to think about what's going to happen in 20 years' time. What will it look like in 20 years' time with the decisions that we're making today? And the other experience, which was very valuable to me, I learned from the Ray Fisher, who is the director of buildings, and he and I were involved quite voluntary in neighbourhood disputes on dividing fences. Now, I know that is not a council matter, but Ray was the sort of guy that valued the importance of people living in harmony within the City of Wanneroo. And he knew the very serious deleterious effects when neighbours fall out. The wells of goodness get poisoned. And so he was prepared to help me do whatever we could to try and heal wounds of hurt and disharmony between warring neighbours. And that had the flip side of that was the importance of neighbours, good neighbourly relations, as being a really additive value to the quality of life that you experience living in suburbia. If you've got good neighbours, you've got a real pot of gold. So these are two important things that drive me with regard to these unhosted short-term rental accommodations. Because what's happening at present is we've got an ad hoc development, properties, private properties are turning into these basically commercial accommodation businesses. And there doesn't seem to be, other than a management plan, where they go up can be anywhere. The drop of a hat, you can find your neighbourly house turned into accommodation business. It's a bit like the e-scooters. This horse is bolting and councils are trying to catch up with it. In the discussions that have gone on this matter, I don't think enough emphasis has been put on this amenity of neighbourhood. We buy a lot in a suburb, but we buy into a suburb. How can I measure this? It's an intangible thing, living in a suburb with good neighbours, good relationships. When an unhosted short-term rental accommodation pops up beside you, you lose that neighbour. You no longer have them. You have a business beside you which is there to operate. I'd like to thank the Planning Department for the inclusion of a new provision regarding the issue of approval periods. It's 5.1.7 in the new policy. This is a one-yearly initial approval. As a way of trying to strengthen the importance of the approval, we would like to see that this is not just for the first year, but it's considered to be an annual issue of a licence to operate an unhosted short-term rental accommodation. This has two aspects. One, it gives some sort of confidence to the adjoining neighbours that there is some sort of supervision or control. And the second point is that it emphasises to the proprietor of the business the importance that their development application is subject to good governance of their management plan and management of their business. So this is a small change, we think, that could be easily accommodated in the recommendations that you as a council are going to consider. Because of the two things that I've spoken about, the importance of long-term consequences and the current practice that these things can crop up in any residential areas, subject to a development application, this is the unhosted ones, we would like to recommend two things. Request that the concept of unhosted short-term rental accommodation as businesses being established in unrestricted locations, basically, as is occurring within the city of Joondalup, be a matter of immediate planning scheme consideration for the purpose of bringing some control over the proliferation within residential areas. What's happening now is a sort of cancer that's going through our suburbs. Our suburbs are being commercialised. Look 20 years down the track and see suburbs like around Hillary's and Sorrento, close to the beach, close to Hillary's boat harbour, close to the infrastructure that's going to go ahead there. These are going to be targeted areas for business accommodation businesses, these things. And you could pick other spots, such as Joondalup City itself. The other recommendation, this recommendation is supported by the officer's report on page 464, where it talks about the consideration of potentially restricting short-term rental accommodation to certain areas in the city is outside the scope of the current policy review, however, is an issue that can be investigated through the city's current local planning strategy review. And we would like to see a recommendation to this councillor report included along this line, so that this matter is actually itemised to be dealt with. The second one deals with the local planning policy regarding short-term rental accommodation, that this also be referred immediately to the policy committee to seek advice as to what further possible additional amendments could be considered so as to enhance the protection of residential amenity and management plan compliance with regards to unhosted short-term rental accommodations. The officer's report did suggest to you, councillors, that you could accept the amendments that were initially put up with modifications. Unfortunately, councillors, you came forward with no modifications. Now I'm asking you, on behalf of the Ratepayers Association, to take this on board, ask the planning department to suggest what modifications they can make. They're the planners. We're not educated in that aspect, but what modifications can be made to reinforce amenity of homeowners. Setting the bar on the management plan, no complaints, everything's okay, dismisses the whole concept of the benefits that comes from having a neighbour that you can care for and that they can care for you. Having a business beside you takes that all away. It's an intangible value. It's a value which I value greatly myself and is important to the welfare of living in a community, in a neighbourhood. This is what's driving us, our values. We want to preserve our communities, our neighbourhoods. We don't want them taken over by commercial accommodation businesses, house by house by house. Thank you very much. If there's any points that you'd like to discuss with me, please.
Thank you. We'll go to questions. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rose, are you aware that the city is actively formulating policy at the moment to try and locate short-term rental accommodation within specific areas to obviate or reduce any possible impact on the neighbourhood?
No, we're not aware of that. And I have no reason why we would be aware of it, Councillor Chester, but it's good to hear. My concern is this is a bit like inflicting pain on certain areas. I wish there was no pain to be inflicted at all, but if that's the solution, that's the remedy, possibly that's the way we have to go. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, possibly the Director will be commenting on that initiative later on this evening. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else? Sorry, Mr.
Any further? Sorry, Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for taking the time to make a deputation. It was very insightful. Obviously, the Policy Committee made a lot of discussions on this. One of the points I just wanted to check if you were aware is the fact that the state government has actually mandated that any residential address can be used for unhosted accommodation up to 90 days per annum. Were you aware that the state government had brought this blanket approval, and even if the city brings in additional requirements, they would not apply to Airbnbs that were done for less than 90 days per annum?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. With respect to two things. With respect, I'm looking at those unhosted short-term rental accommodations that require development approvals. So that excludes the 90-day ones, okay? So these are open the full 365. But you do ask an interesting question. The 90 days, I don't know whether that means 90 consecutive calendar days, 90 days over the year. If that was the case, you could have 45 weekend bookings every weekend for 45 weeks. The person could rent their house out And I know this happens from personal associations. A person rents out his house when he's tight for money on an Airbnb basis, and he goes and lives with his parents. So you could have 45 weekends where you get the 90 days. Or is it 90 days of actual bookings? So, you know, the 90 days is, perhaps the Director of Planning has how that is defined. Thank you. Yeah. So we did know that the 90 days is not, is possible unrestricted, yeah.
Given I believe we have to ask questions, I would say to you, were you aware that it actually doesn't have to be 90 days consecutive? It can just be 90 days throughout a year, and it could be every weekend, but not, you know, the weekdays, basically. Yep. Were you aware that was the case?
Yeah, well, that's the ambiguity about the 90 days, yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess my final question, obviously you make reference in your presentation that you're here on behalf of your local residents association. Has the association had any discussions with your state representatives around the changes that were brought in which allowed unhosted accommodation to take place to up to 90 days non-consecutive per annum?
No, we haven't, thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any final questions for Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The last deputation is from Ms. Michelle Kwok on item 13.2.1.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors. This deputation is about supporting the review of the telecommunications infrastructure local planning policy. Importantly, to amend the city's position on advertising applications to align with council and community feedback and expectations. I would like to highlight a recent example on how the current process has failed community expectation so council can understand the reasons behind this amendment. Next, please. The local residents in Ocean Reef call this the illegal 5G tower. They emit frequencies in the range of thousands of megahertz. The city received an application for the development approval for the installation of the telecommunications tower in October 2023. Land within the Ocean Reef Marina Precinct is subject to the Ocean Reef Marina Improvement Scheme number 1 and not the city's local planning scheme number 3 or associated policies. The city's role was to assess the application against the relevant planning framework, the Ocean Reef Marina Improvement Scheme number 1, State Planning Policy 5.2 Telecommunications Infrastructure, and to provide a recommendation to the decision maker, the WAPC. Next, please. The city officers provided their recommendation to WAPC in November 2023, which included recommending public consultation be undertaken for a period of 28 days to properties within 400 meters of the site and a sign being erected on the site. City officer noted that there was insufficient time to send the proposal to council for endorsement. Consequently, the public has no knowledge of this. Next, please. Through FOI, we noted the email copy to the mayor and ward councillors by city's officer stating they have advised the WAPC to do consultation, community consultation. Other than that, no one knew about this. The WAPC subsequently approved the installation of the telecommunications infrastructure in February 2024 without undertaking public consultation. WAPC claimed that community consultation wasn't required as the area in which the tower is located is classified as an industrial marine precinct, even though it's adjacent to residential homes less than 155 meters away. Let's take a look at the WAPC state planning framework. Next, please. Their governance principle is to build community confidence in development processes and practices. They did not manage to promote transparency, nor provide appropriate opportunity for public participation in decision-making processes. WAPC failed to meet their own standard and failed the community, and I have voiced my concern in my submission to the recent parliamentary inquiry into land development and planning in Western Australia. Next, please. At this point, the community was still kept in the dark until end of May 2024. Residents along the coast woke up to this gigantic 35-meter monopole right in front of their properties. The committee was extremely upset and outraged about the lack of notification and the lack of community consultation processes. They arranged community meeting, invited both ward councillors, one attended. Couple of state election candidates also attended to hear the concern. Next, please. A petition was tabled at council meeting requesting the city to place a stop order on the installation of the tower and to appeal the installation approval decision. That was a summary of the petition. Next, please. Here's the full version of the petition detailing health and safety issues, environmental impact, the impact on aesthetic and property values, and the lack of community consultation. It also lists the relevant legislations as an instrument for the city to take action. Residents also contacted Amplitel, voicing the concern. Next, please. Amplitel was told by WAPC they didn't need to do community consultation. Next, please. The advice from WAPC actually contravenes the industrial code for mobile phone base station deployment, which is designed for the carrier to provide greater transparency to local community and councils when a carrier is planning, selecting sites for, installing and operating mobile phone radio communications infrastructure, and allow the community and councils to have greater participation in the decision-making process of carriers when deploying mobile phone base stations. Next, please. 4 months after the installation of this 35 meters monopole, we were told we could make submissions through the Radio Frequency National Site Archive project website. Next, please. 2 public notices from Amplitel suddenly appeared along the coastal road, one on a lamppost, the other one on the fence to the road down to the boat ramp. There were roadworks on both sides, and it was not readily accessible to foot traffic. These notices were not placed in a good spot and were not serving their purpose. Furthermore, it says notice of mobile phone proposal. We assumed it meant mobile phone base station proposal. They have 2 very different meanings. Then the word proposal actually means a formal suggestion or plan put forward for consideration. It's a bit mind-boggling to propose something that's already taken place. In that photo, we could see this new pole in the background, but the email response showed me that the person in charge has no knowledge that the pole in the picture is not the old pole that was to be relocated. He has no idea that the installation has already happened. It seems that they knew they shouldn't have gone along with the poor advice from WAPC that they are not required to do public consultation. They have been caught out by the public, and they attempted to provide opportunities for community consultation, which was rather pointless at this late stage. Maybe they really wanted to do the right thing under the code, but were misguided by WAPC. My suggestion is that these telecommunications companies should be encouraged to bear the cost of community consultation in the future. Next, please. Why are people so concerned about having to live in close proximity to a cell tower? We want faster internet and better reception, don't we? This cross-section shows the properties in Ocean Reef, which are built on sand dunes, and they are on an incline. Houses on Mansell Drive are less than 200 meters from the tower and much closer to the antenna than anticipated because of the incline. Therefore, higher exposure rate of electromagnetic frequencies have been experienced. Residents have been taking measurements and found they have exceeded safety limits. Next, please. 2 households marked by the red rectangles have sold their properties and moved away due to health concerns. The residents in the north has a young family and choose not to expose their young children to non-ionizing radiation emitted by the 5G tower, the red dot. The residents next to them in the south told me they have ill health since the tower has been activated. They have moved to the city of Wanneroo since. I know health concern is outside the scope of planning policy. Just quickly mention health concern, if I may, because it's impacting on people's well-being. Having a smartphone is like smoking a cigarette. It will take decades for cancer to appear if unlucky. Living next to a 5G tower is equivalent to living next to an industrial chimney or an incinerator, which is a lot worse than smoking one cigarette. Similar to smoke, electromagnetic frequencies are a pollutant. Just because you can't see or smell it, it's harder to be aware of its presence. Unlike smoke, where intensity can be dictated by wind directions and weather conditions, electromagnetic waves are directional and it pulses, not dissimilar to a flashing light shining into your eyes, which can cause neurological disturbances from erratic pulsing. Next, please. We knew back in 2011, the World Health Organization, International Agency for Research on Cancer, has classified radiofrequency radiation as possibly carcinogenic to humans, group 2B, based on an increased risk for glioma, malignant type of brain cancer associated with wireless phone use. Next, please. World Health Organization also states that children should not be exposed to magnetic field of more than 0.3 of a microtesla to avoid childhood leukemia. Next, please. A court-ordered study has found that electromagnetic waves beamed by Vatican radio leave residents living near the station's antennas at high risk of cancer. There were 19 child deaths from leukemia and lymphoma in those years. That was before the time of 5G, and it was a radio mast affecting households as far as 7 miles away. Next, please. In the electric supply industry, in a document by the regulator, APANSA, workers can be exposed to as much as 2,000 microtesla and electric fields of up to 30 kilovolts per meter, which is 30,000 volt per meter. Next, please. One study referenced by APANSA, the regulator, states that cardiac tissues are excitable at relatively high exposure level at 12 volt per meter peak. We were talking 30,000 volt per meter exposure in an industry just now. The heart can lose its rhythm and become a life-threatening situation. 50 to 60 hertz can interfere with pacemaker and insulin pumps. We saw on the second slide that this antenna emits 700 megahertz to 3,500 megahertz each, which is tens of million times higher than 60 hertz. Next, please. EMF can also interfere or affect metallic prostheses, implanted defibrillators, cochlear implants, and cardiac pacemakers and insulin pumps, and the like are designed to withstand electric fields of up to 3 volt per meter, which is not very much. This is problematic for a lot of people who are relying on these devices to function properly. Last slide, please. In closing, We are most pleased that the city is addressing community concern by the amendments put before council to carry out necessary community consultation, because other entities have failed us in their lack of duty of care. This was an AGM motion this year highlighting the issue. I would like to emphasize the fact that any poor decision made by current land manager of the Ocean Reef Marina will impact on the city at a later stage when the land parcel is being transferred back to the city. WAPC and Development WA will need to acknowledge this and take more notice on comments coming from the city. We support the draft revised telecommunications infrastructure local planning policy advertised for public comments for a period of 21 days. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Kwok. Does anyone wish to ask a very quick question before we run out of time? No? In that case, I declare the deputation time closed. The next item of business is public question time. We've received public questions in a written form from Ms. Kwok, and those have been circulated. So there is a set of procedures relating to public question time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You have an opportunity to ask 2 questions, and your questions must be directed to myself as the chair and be asked in a polite and respectful manner. Questions asked at a briefing session must relate to a report listed on the briefing session agenda. And if there's anyone in the gallery who wishes to come forward now, you can state your name and address for the public record. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a public question? No? In that case, I declare public question time closed. The next item is public statement time. There is a set of procedures relating to public statement time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You are able to make a statement for up to 2 minutes, and your statement should be directed to myself as the chair and be polite and respectful. No questions or discussion will occur at the end of your statement, and statements made in the briefing session must relate to the report on the briefing session agenda. And we have a register which we have kept, and we currently have one name on that register, and that's Ms. Beth Hewitt, if you'd like to come forward. So if you could please come forward and state your name and address for the public record.
Beth Hewitt, Woodview Court, Edgewater. Tonight, the city is considering further investment in the Performing Arts Centre, with the current report outlining the intent to develop a business case for a dedicated facility for performing arts and cultural events within the City of Joondalup Centre. Such a facility could serve as a significant cultural landmark, enhancing the city's reputation as a vibrant and creative hub. However, there remains uncertainty regarding whether the proposed centre will primarily support community arts development, operate as a commercial theatre, or fulfil both roles. It is essential to establish a clear vision and robust business case before proceeding. So many similar facilities run at unsustainable losses until closing their doors. I hope that following the grant application and its receival, this investigation will give the community a real understanding of what the proposal is, because for now we don't understand it.
Thank you, Ms. Hewitt. Is there anybody else who wishes to make a public statement tonight? No, in that case, I close public statement time. The next item tonight is apologies and leaves of absence. We have Councillor Nige Jones, who is on a leave of absence, and the Deputy Mayor, Raftis. Is there anyone who wishes to add a leave of absence for the upcoming council meeting? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to request leave for the 20th to the 23rd of February inclusive, 2026, and the 4th to the 6th of August, 2026 inclusive.
Thank you. Do we have those recorded? Yes, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to ask one? Councillor May.
Thank you. Just from the 18th of December until the 9th of January inclusive.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzi.
Yes, please. From the 24th of December through to the 4th of January.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? No? In that case, those will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting to be held on the 9th of December. The confirmation of minutes will be dealt with also at the ordinary council meeting. There are no announcements tonight at the briefing session. That brings us to identification of matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public. There's 4 confidential reports. So item 2.4, status of legal actions. Item 12.13, review of insurance services. Item 13.3.2, which is the status update for Project Axiom. Item 13.3.3, which is the Burns Beach Cafe restaurant update. And of course, there's one report with a confidential attachment, which is item 12.3. So if anyone has any questions on the confidential attachment at 12.3 when we get there, so that's not just general questions on it, but specifically about the tenderers, we'll have to have that one heard when we do the others behind closed doors. So does anyone have any of those reports or the confidential attachment which they wish to discuss?
Yes,
Councillor
thank you,
Mercer.
Mr Mayor. 12.12.3.
12.12.
I think it was?
Yep.
Yep, thank
It's
you.
end of, yeah. Thank you. In that case, we'll move straight to then petitions. We've received 5 petitions. Those will also be included in the minutes, but to read them out briefly, one is in the petition in relation to the impact of the Main Roads Freeway and the associated project works on city residents. Another in relation to the city installing a speed hump on Country Club Boulevard in Connolly. A further petition in relation to requesting the city add amenities to Barwon Park Belden. And then 2 petitions for Callaroo in relation to requesting the city consider the full scope and impact of the traffic management improvements and the provision of an additional car park on North Shore Drive. Are there any other petitions councillors wish to submit? No, so all the submitted petitions we checked for validity and will be heard at the council meeting on the 9th. I now move to the report section of tonight's agenda. We are going to have one presentation on item 12.8 by the Director of Governance and Strategy. But what I will do, instead of us going through sequentially, I will start with the items of which there's been deputations on first. So if we would like to go to item 12.9, which is the wildlife protection infrastructure to support native wildlife movement. So starting there, councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Pizzey. I think you're indicating.
Yeah, I would like to say that I'm going to move an amendment on this motion, which I will send to the city separately, if that's okay. I have drafted something now, but it's probably better to send it through the city and work it that way.
That's all right. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just really quickly, I'd like to flag that I will have an alternate for this as well, replacing point 3 and requesting a trial to begin in on the virtual fencing on Woodvale Drive. I'm just wondering, when I read the report, could I get some clarity around the costs there, just further stating between $10,000 to $26,000 for between 800 metres and 2.5 kilometres. Is that for a straight run, or is that in, would that be, could it be in sectional areas? I just want to know a little bit more about the costing of the virtual fencing, if I could.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. I think, it's going to Ms Macario as the manager.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor O'Neill. The costs within the report are estimate costs, so that's based on a desktop review. To get proper costs, we would have to undertake a study and engage external consultants to do that. But the indicative cost is for a straight line. If we wanted a different kind of installation, then that would be subject to an external consultant providing that costing.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So obviously, with what I'm intending to place down as an alternate for this, would it be in the realms of, you know, $100,000 if we were to sort of test, pilot, trial, say 3 sections of, say, 1 kilometre long, would that be something that you could assume in terms of a cost?
Go to the manager again.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Because there was no budget allocated to undertake research for each individual area, we are only able to give indicative costs. If there was a particular location where we wanted to undertake a trial, we would need to undertake research specifically on that location to ascertain the actual costs of that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wonder if I could ask a question to the Director of Infrastructure, if you will.
Yes, if you wish to.
Okay. I heard from a member of the gallery that the intended colour-bond fence that was going to be constructed on lot 95 Woodvale Drive, has that actually been installed? I wasn't aware.
Go to the Director of Infrastructure as requested.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, I can confirm that. I think it's about 40 metres of fence was installed last week.
And when was that installed exactly?
The message I got was last week. I don't know which day on last week it was installed, Councillor Chester.
Thank you. Any, Councillor May?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Is there any opportunities for the city to, given its DBCA land, that the fencing would be abutting, would the DBCA contribute towards the funding of it?
Who wishes to take that? To the Director of Infrastructure.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the fencing that Councillor Chester was referred to was on private land, not DBCA land, so there was no contribution from DBCA.
Thank you. Apologies, I was referring to the intended alternate raised by Councillor O'Neill.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't know if Ms Macario has got some comments on that. I've got no idea if DBCA would be prepared to contribute. I don't know if Ms Macario had discussions with them already.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. We haven't sought advice from DBCA on the virtual fencing trial because that obviously wasn't something that we were considering given the resource implications and the budget implications, but we are working with DBCA on a number of other actions to reduce the impacts of kangaroos within the Yellowgonga Regional Park area. We're also looking at doing something similar for other areas where kangaroos are an issue, such as around Craigie Bushland and Pinaroo Memorial Park. But in terms of whether DBCA would support a trial, that's something that we would need to engage with them directly on.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. My question is a more general one in regards to the kangaroo population. Through you, Mayor, are we aware if the kangaroo population in the City of Joondalup is stable? Do we know if it's currently self-sustaining? Has it reached a certain peak point? Do we have just any data around that? And obviously, I guess further to that, is there any need at any point potentially to actually relocate kangaroos, or do we have enough space at the moment to sustain the current population?
Thank you. I believe it's increasing, but we'll go to the manager.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. As part of the original proposal to have a kangaroo management plan for Yellowgonga, looking at the population and the dynamics of that population was something that the city was interested in having more research undertaken into. We know that as the area that supports the kangaroos becomes less and less, then the population may be subject to some constraints. So that is some data that we would actually like to work with the state government to actually have. We are looking at doing our own monitoring, but it does need to be done on a larger scale, so we would need DBCA to be involved in that project to be able to provide that research and data.
Thank you. Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, and sorry, and if I can just check that. So is it possible for us to work out what the peak sustainable population would be for the areas that are currently set aside? and where we benchmark currently on that population, obviously assuming that there is a maximum number of kangaroos that you can have per hectare in a sustainable fashion, and whether or not we are near that at the moment. Again, this is just to give me oversight of the complete issue.
Thank you, and we'll go to Ms. Macario again.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To ascertain that information, we would need to engage external consultants, so we'd need an ecologist to undertake a study to provide that information. That's not information that we currently have. We do know, obviously, that there is a very large population of kangaroos within Yellowgonga particularly, and obviously the area is within an urban environment, so there's lots of challenges around that, but that's not information that we could ascertain internally. We would have to engage consultants to do that work.
Any further questions? Councillor Pizzey.
Thank you. Just after the information of what we have heard tonight from the deputation of the costs and ongoing costs to the city and ratepayers, has the city considered this when looking at the small cost of 10 to 26,000 in comparison with what they have? Did you know those numbers of costs that it's costing with the kangaroos passing away?
Ms. Macario.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Those costs had not been provided to the city before tonight. I'm not sure how the costs are allocated in terms of the data that's provided, but it is useful information that the city can receive. So the report itself only looks at the costs for the installation of the infrastructure. That was the purpose of the report, so we haven't considered other costs from third parties.
Councillor Pizzey.
Okay. Can I also ask, you mentioned earlier that you're working with DBCA on actions for looking after the local kangaroo population. What solutions have been discussed, and what actions are you working with DBCA on specifically?
Ms. Macario. I think if you wish to take that one.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So within the report, we provide some information on the development of the Kangaroo Action Plan that we've been developing with DBCA and also the City of Wanneroo. So this includes fencing upgrades, including wire mesh at the base of the fencing and spiral-loaded pedestrian gates where applicable. We're looking at reviewing speed limits and signage on roads around Yellowgonga Regional Park, looking at seeking grant funding to conduct research into kangaroo movements as well as genetic sustainability of the kangaroo population, so similar to what Councillor Hutton was asking about. Also investigating the establishment of a monitoring program because we are lacking in data and research around kangaroo movements, and also to continue to engage with the community on fauna awareness issues. We have done some education with residents around not feeding kangaroos and attracting them to come to their homes. So continuing with those types of initiatives.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzey, any further?
Was the city aware of the number of kangaroos that had been killed along that road by cars? I mean, we can assume that every kangaroo that's been hit, a car has been damaged, and there's potential that a person was also injured at that point in time. Was the city aware of how many kangaroos have actually died along that stretch of road in the last 12 months?
Ms. Macario? Oh, Director Claassen.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The city will not have the data in terms of the number of kangaroos that died on that road. What the city are available to obtain is the crash data and the causes of those crash data, but not the animal fatalities.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Councillor Pizzey?
That would be good if we could the city get that data for us so we can have a little bit more awareness about the actual numbers.
Director Claassen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, crash data is published on an annual basis, so we'll have that until the end of December 2024, but I'll check with the team what data is available and provided in the back.
Councillor Pizzey?
As a part of that data, does it specifically say, you know, does it say what caused the crash as well as that there was a crash? So will we know if it was a kangaroo or the like?
Director Clarkson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the crash data provide details of the causes. Not sure if hit object would mean an animal, etc. However, I'll provide the details we have from the CARS, which is the crash analysis database, and provide it back to elected members.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzey.
And I apologise, I'm not sure about how this data correlates, but is the data through insurance requests or only if the person has reported it to the police? So could a person make an insurance request on their car without reporting to the police the data?
Director Clarkson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these are reported data. So if they are unreported crashes, no, that will not appear on the crash database.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzey.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Right. Thank you. In that case, we will move on to item 13.2.4, which was the short-term rental accommodation. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for you to probably the Director of Corporate Services around differential rating of Airbnb or short-term accommodation. Does the city have data on how many properties and what those properties are that are short-term accommodation, and is the city able to differentially rate on those properties?
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll defer the question on the data source to Director Lee in just a moment, but with regards to differential rating, if the city is able to access a verifiable data source for what a property is being used for, either by way of an approval being granted or some other form of licence being obtained to use a property for that purpose, we can impose a differential rate on those properties.
And Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the number of short-term rental accommodations we have in the city, the information we checked on the state government's website a couple of weeks ago showed that we had 375 properties in the city, 184 of those hosted, 191 unhosted.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Thank you. Just a final question on that. Are people able to, I assume they are, but I just wanted a formal answer to it, able to put their properties on Airbnb without registering it?
Director Lee. Or
Thank you.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. They are required to register their property before they're able to upload their property to one of the platforms. My understanding is now that they need to actually include their registration number when they're applying to upload it.
Thank you. I may flag an alternate for this one as well for the next council meeting, just along the lines of a 0.5. It may not be appropriate to do an alternate, but I will just say that requests the Chief Executive Officer include options for differential rating of short-term accommodation in the budget development process.
Councillor May and Director Humphrey, is that something we can assist drafting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I'd be happy to provide that assistance.
Thank you. And Councillor Chester, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, through you, I wonder if the Director or his staff, Director of Planning or his staff, could elaborate on the policy that we're formulating to restrict the location of short-term rental accommodation for the benefit of the two gentlemen of the deputation. Thank you.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Perhaps starting when we did start formulating this amendment to the local planning scheme and changes to our current short-term rental accommodation local planning policy, the notion of locational criteria is something that we discussed. The position statement that the West Australian Planning Commission has prepared for short-term rental accommodation indicates that really only locational criteria can be considered when it's identified or established through some sort of strategic planning exercise, so a local planning strategy, for example. And so for that reason, we didn't include it as part of this tranche of changes to our short-term rental accommodation planning framework. However, it is something that we are actively pursuing as part of the local planning strategy project that we're advancing. What our intent is for short-term rental accommodation as it relates to the strategy project is that early in the new year, around April, we'll be discussing with elected members the concept of locational criteria and where, I guess, what the principles around that might look like. We'd then be looking to engage with probably our strategic community reference group later in that year to also test some of those principles with the community. And the intent would be to bundle those recommendations up into the local planning strategy report and ultimately hopefully find those recommendations into, have them find their way into our local planning scheme. And that really is the process to undertaking a strategic consideration around locational criteria so we can respond to the position statement and then have it introduced into our planning framework so we can start applying it. But in the interim, as was pointed out in the deputation tonight, the policy that we're proposing to Council as part of this round of meetings, the intent is to introduce a time-limited approval at least at the start of a short-term rental accommodation, and that will give us some time to again review and update our framework around this kind of development.
Thank you, Director.
A further question, if you will.
Chester.
Director, are you in a position at this stage to indicate where those locations, preferred locations, might be?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I'm not. It's something that we haven't defined in any detail yet, and it's certainly something that we'd like to work through with elected members and then also receive some community input on it before we look to finalise anything.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. Councillor Joondalup.
Thank you, through you. During the deputation, there was a very interesting positioning on the word business, and I found that intriguing, and I thank the gentleman for the deputation. Where I want to go with that is to ask a simple question in relation to rates. If we see this as short-term accommodation rental being a business, are they paying residential rates or are they paying commercial rates? What is the space when it comes to actual rates in general when it comes to this space?
I think Director Humphrey, you're probably best placed on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Responding through you. The differential rates we use now are determined by the planning determination of what a property is. So commercial rates are only paid by properties that are zoned commercial, and industrial the same. So we don't actually apply a differential rate based on residential use or home-based business use. The city is able to investigate that, and you could, in theory, apply a differential rate where a home-based business is in place, but those properties will be zoned residential and be rated as residential.
Makes total sense. I guess from the perspective of looking at this, if someone's investing in these kind of properties and it's a full-time short-term accommodation rental, then literally it's a business. So I guess the positioning gets interesting, and it'd be probably a space that I would seek clarification on. I don't know.
So is that a question or
Oh, it's more
a statement?
A statement, but obviously maybe digging a little bit deeper with the Director.
I think we can investigate that offline, yes. Anyway, so just a reminder, the briefing sessions are for questions, not statements. Any further questions? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is there any data on complaints from other residents living within the vicinity of a short-term rental accommodation?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're just seeing if we can pull up some data here. So we've undertaken 9 compliance action requests relating to short-term rental accommodation since September 2024. The complaints were resulting from adjoining neighbours as well as proactive actions being raised from the state government register to us. 2 of those are still open and the 7 others have been closed. The balance of the complaints that were relating to short-term rental accommodations operating without approval. The outcomes of our compliance investigations resulted in approvals being applied for, owners moving back into the property, therefore no longer being used as a short-term rental accommodation, or confirmation that the property was a hosted short-term rental accommodation and therefore didn't require approval.
Director, Councillor Mercer, anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutton.
Yes, thank you. Just want to ask a couple of questions on this 90-day time period. Obviously, there was some questions asked about it before, or statements made by the gallery. In terms of the 90 days, would I be right in saying that if a homeowner puts up their Airbnb, as an example, for hire for the entire year, but it's only actually hired out for 90 days, or under 90 days, that wouldn't require any approval as per the state government legislation?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's right. The regulations, they refer to it as period or periods not exceeding 3 months, and so the interpretation of that is that it doesn't need to be 90 consecutive days, and I think the point was made in the deputation this evening that someone could theoretically make their property available for 45 weekends and 2 nights per weekend, and so that would theoretically be possible.
Through you, Mayor, and then obviously just confirming on that for complete clarity, the city therefore has no power when it comes to short-term accommodation that's leased out for 90 days or less, and that decision power has been taken away from local government and effectively by the state government legislation.
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. From a planning perspective, that's right. There's no requirement to obtain a planning approval for an unhosted accommodation that's operating for 90 nights or less.
Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, and just through you, Mayor, is the city aware of any examples, or have they heard of any examples of where non-compliant short-term accommodation simply drops its rate of hire to less than 3 months in order to meet the rules? I guess another way to ask that question would be, if someone was found to be in breach of the planning approval, could they simply lease out their property for 3 months or less and therefore not be bound by any of the rules that we're seeking to set?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of any properties that have acted in that way. I think, to your question, as a hypothetical, that is hypothetically what someone could do. I think the point I would make as well that this all relates to the planning obligations under a property and use of that property. There are still other obligations on a property or a homeowner or an occupant, like there is in anyone that's in an owner-occupied property or long-term renting, around responding to other types of legislation like the noise regulations and the like. But to your point, if someone was looking to avoid a planning application, that is, I suppose, hypothetically what someone could do.
Just final question through you, Mayor. Is there therefore a risk that if the city, in its powers to regulate over a 3-month period, if it makes the requirements too strict or too harsh, that we might actually just encourage more people to move into the less regulated space of less than 90 days, and there's actually a balancing act required? Would it be the city's preference to have as many people as possible operating under the rules and frameworks that are set by the city? And how do we balance that? And do you think the current proposal seeks that balance? And some of the suggestions that have been made around changing, would they put that at risk? Thank you.
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's probably a difficult one to provide a detailed or full answer on, but I suppose the observation I would make around the operating over 90 days or less than 90 days is operating over 90 days, and therefore there's a higher level of planning regulation, if you like, because there's the need for a planning approval to be obtained and a subsequent management plan to be adhered to. Operating less than 90 days, you obviously don't have those same obligations, but then also in thinking about the impact to the neighbours and the surrounding street, the operation isn't being carried out as frequently, and so there would be a reduction in the potential level of disturbance. But I do take your point that there is obviously greater regulation if you look to trade greater than 90 days, but then that also comes with more frequency of the property being used for that purpose as well.
Councillor Hutton, anything further? Thank you. Any last questions on this? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to quickly go back over something that Councillor Mercer was talking about in relation to complaints. Just wondering how the city came to be aware of these complaints that they've cited. Can they explain the process of how those complaints were made and for what exactly the complaints were in relation to?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of ways. In some instances, a surrounding neighbour will bring it to our attention. We'll then go and investigate and take the relevant compliance action. In other instances, the state government agency that implements the short-term rental accommodation register will bring it to our attention as well, and then we'll go investigate on their identification of an issue.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the city aware of when these complaints were made by the surrounding neighbours? Was it for reasons of noise disturbance, violence in the area? What was the reason the neighbours complained?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the question on notice and see if we can provide some information for elected members in the briefing session notes, but typically we would receive complaints around noise or parking.
So people just like parking on the other, neighbours' properties, things like that. Too many cars parked, that sort of stuff.
Director.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I will clarify, but typically it would be people parking on the road or perhaps creating an issue for a neighbour and trying to navigate out of their driveway or something like that as well. But as I said, I'll look at the complaints we've received and I'll be able to provide you a bit more detail and specifics.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. Just one further quick one there. You said in resolution of these complaints, some of these people were operating without approvals. Could you just expand on that a little bit more and explain how it was, how was it found that they were operating without approval? Does the city dig into the business operations of that person or the companies that they're operating those rental accommodations through?
Thank you. I think some of the specifics might need to be dealt with, privately, but Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Generally, how the city would identify that a property was operating without approval would be twofold. We'd check the register on the state government website, but then we'd also check our own records, because if they did have an approval, we'd have a record of that. We'd be able to identify the approval that we've issued as well as the conditions they were bound by.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Any final questions on this item? No? In that case, we'll move on to the other item which there was a deputation, which is item 13.2.1, the review of the telecommunications infrastructure local planning policy. Are there any questions on this item? It appears not. In that case, we will go back to the start of the agenda reports. So I'll start at 12.1 and we'll just go through sequentially. So are there any questions on item 12.1, development of subdivision applications? No? 12.2, access and inclusion plan and age-friendly plan and regional homeless plan and reconciliation action plan progress reports? No? Item 12.3, execution of documents? No? 12, we'll do 12.4, I'll ask for at the end. 12.5, status of council decisions? No. 12.6, minutes of regional councils? No. 12.7, status of petitions? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just seeking to initially seek advice from governance around adding an alternate to add a point 6 in relation to one of the petitions in the report on stamp page 197 in relation to the Merrifield Place roadworks and community consultation in regards to pedestrian, fire and car safety. Is council able to, am I able to propose an amendment around adding a point 6 in relation to that petition and presenting the lead petitioner with an option for, a design option for parallel parking bays?
Thank you, Councillor May. Director Claassen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as we've indicated to the Mayor and the ward councillors, we will engage with the lead petitioner and provide options to them. We can include that option, no need for an alternate to do that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor May.
Thank you. So the option for parallel bays can be included without an alternate from council?
Yep. Director Claassen?
That's correct.
Thank you, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Ventulo.
Thank you. Through you, just a quick one for me in relation to the petition on North Shore Drive. Could I just get clarification from the city of, there was 2 petitions, what percentage are double ups of the, obviously the submissions? So there was, you know, I'm just trying to see what percentage were double ups.
So this item relates to petitions that have already been accepted. So those petitions haven't been accepted, but we can probably take it on notice.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, so my question is just in regards to the petition on, I think it's Windmere Park. Obviously, there's reference to the fact that we currently have a plan in works. When we're advising the petitioner of that decision, are we going to be clear that there's an ongoing discussion happening and we're not just rejecting the decision? Or sorry, we're not just rejecting the request?
Director Claassen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, point 3.3 attempts to achieve that. Councillor Hutton notes that the city does currently in development and will be considered as part of that. We can expand in the letter to state that.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Thank you. Any further questions on this item? No. In that case, we then move to 12.8, the Customer Satisfaction Survey, where we have a presentation from Director Parry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Mayor and councillors, the purpose of this report is for the council to receive the results of the 2025 Customer Satisfaction Survey. The survey is conducted every 2 years to measure the level of overall satisfaction with the city, as well as to assess the performance of externally facing or resident relevant services. The city appointed Edith Cowan University to design and deliver the survey, which involved random sampling and interviewing of just over 600 respondents that lived within the city. The sample was cross-checked to ensure that it matched the demographic profile and the population spread of Joondalup to ensure a representative sample. It is important to recognise that the sampling size of around 600 respondents produces a sampling precision of plus or minus 4% at the 95% confidence level or interval. That is that there is a 95% certainty that the results obtained will be within plus or minus 4% if a census was conducted of all households within the City of Joondalup, and that percentage is in accordance with the level that's specified by the Auditor General. Overall, the 2025 results indicated high levels of community satisfaction for the 6+ to 10, with 88.2% satisfied with the services that are provided by the City. In addition, the results indicated that 96.3% were satisfied with the City as a place to live, 74% were satisfied with their value for money from council rates, and 85.8% were satisfied with the City's customer service experience. The survey results show that overall satisfaction with the City of Joondalup remains high, and most residents are satisfied with the services provided by the City. And we undertook some the consultants undertook some benchmarking against comparable level 1 local governments, and that also showed that the City was performing at a very high level with regard to satisfaction levels. The consultant also highlighted areas for improvement where there was an opportunity to increase satisfaction ratings, with 3 city services where that opportunity was most evident, and that was in relation to community consultation, parking, tourism, and visitor attraction. And an improvement plan has been developed to identify those actions that can be implemented for those particular services to increase those satisfaction scores the next time we undertake the survey. The data collected from the survey will also be used to inform future service reviews and service level planning, not just those 3 identified improvement areas. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Director Parry. Are there any questions? And of course, reflecting on that we have discussed this previously at strategy. Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. Just in regards to the numbers when it comes to parking in the North Ward, obviously there was a change to the parking system. As part of that change, there was temporary measures put in place to smooth the transition, such as the inclusion of an additional permit. I'm wondering if, in light of the numbers that we're seeing in this report, whether or not there's been any consideration given to the need to extend those measures, given they are due to expire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. And there might be Director Lee for the permit system.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take the question on notice and provide elected members with some data around the uptake of the transition from our previous paper-based permit system to our e-permit system. The city is quite well progressed from memory. I just don't have the particular number in front of me this evening. We're also proactively contacting residents that are yet to make the transition across from paper permits to e-permits to confirm that they do in fact want a parking permit, and we can support them with their transition. But as I said, I'll take the question on notice and provide some information for elected members in terms of what the uptake is currently standing at.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. Could I also request, as part of that we include data, particularly around the uptake of the 3rd permit, which was obviously given optional, and if we could also look at whether or not the new system is improving compliance through reduction in complaints, and also some data around the enforcement mechanisms, particularly around fines that have been issued and the like, just so we can have a holistic view around what is going on and whether or not we are delivering best outcomes for local residents when it comes to parking in light of the numbers in the survey, if that's possible.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we'll collect as much information and provide it to elected members as we can within the time frame. The point I think I'll make around infringements is noting that it is a transition to a new system. We have been mindful of that, and so we have been taking, I suppose, a bit more of an approach where we would look to caution and educate rather than infringe while we're still making this transition. And so it may well be the case that the number of infringements may not be high in volumes, but we are taking the opportunity to manage the transition so the community is comfortable as we are able to transition in its entirety.
Councillor?
Yeah, and then just to be crystal clear on that request, the other point being, given there was a desire to have increased compliance, whether or not we can have any data around whether or not there's been complaints from local residents around the lack of parking and the lack of availability, or whether or not those issues have been resolved through the current system, and therefore there may be capacity to increase the number of permits provided. So is it possible to include factors like that, obviously, if the data is available?
Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Absolutely, we'll find what information we have around complaints as well, and then I'll also include the previous decisions of council around setting number of permits per property and the like as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, we'll then move on. We've done 12.9, 12.10 list of payments. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have a list off there with Director Humphrey so that we can hopefully get some answers before the council meeting. There's a couple there that I'd like to raise. First one being on page 232, invoice number 133272 for a charge with Galaxy 42 Proprietary Limited. It's a monthly charge of $15,510, which roughly equates to $186,120 per annum. Can I get some clarification as to what this is?
Director Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Responding through yourself. Galaxy 42 trade under the company name Matura, and they currently provide the support and security service for our Technology One suite of products. So they essentially maintain that database for the city and ensure that it is secure and usable for city staff.
Okay, thank you. And then page 232, 133843, $1,000 gold page investments claimed as outbound meals for attendees. Can I get some clarification onto who attended and what was for?
Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. That invoice relates to a Discovery Outbound event that's a program run by our libraries. The event was a trip to Moore River. 49 people attended. It included a return trip by bus from Whitford Library, a tour of Gilderton and a food package.
So the charge for $1,000 was more than just for outbound meals?
Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I can clarify in the briefing session notes, but that would be my understanding that it was around the full delivery of the program rather than just the meals, but I will take the question on notice so I can clarify for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Moving on, just page 239. I don't actually have the invoice number there written for me, but it's a deposit payment for the Grand Chancellor Hotel, Grand Chancellor Hotel for Hobart, 8th to the 13th November 2025. It was a deposit payment of $1,250. What is the total cost that it will be for this hotel booking, and who is it for?
Director Claassen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And through you, the payment was for a conference, which is the National Conference for Parks and Leisure, Australia. The conference theme was inspired by the past vision for the future and was attended by the Manager Parks and Natural Environment. I actually think the cost is the full cost, but I'll check that because it's called a deposit, but it's a prepayment of the accommodation, but I'll just confirm that in the back.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd appreciate the clarity on that one. Also further, just one more on page 265, 133875, Sherry Padden licensing fee for use of artwork. The charge was $7,050. Can you explain the particulars of this artwork?
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe I would do it justice, but we'll provide a copy of the artwork in the packs on Fridays for elected members to see, and the details around the licensing fee and what we were required to pay for the display of that particular artwork.
Councillor.
Thank you. Just on that one, is this a one-off charge or will this be a reoccurring fee?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will confirm in the packs, but my understanding is that is the acquisition of the licence to display the artwork wherever the city so chooses.
Councillor. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have three queries. Looking at page 216, Asphalt Tech Proprietary Limited, reinstatement of line markings for 1 day, $116,000. Could I just have some clarity on that work, please?
Director Humphrey or Clarkson?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the system, when it produces the report for the list of payments, only picks up the first line item of the invoice. What I'd like to do is take that question on notice and provide the details of everything on that invoice in the packs.
Thank you. Councillor Chester.
Page 222, Cleanaway. I presume this is for skip bins, collection of bulk hard waste, 113,000. Skip bins, yes?
Director Humphrey or Clarkson?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take the question on notice. Yes, it may include skibbins, but I'd rather pull the invoice and make sure what it's for.
Thank you. Councillor Chester.
Oops. And finally, page 226, data number 3, yearly licence subscription of $504,350. Seems an inordinate amount of money to pay for licences, but I'm not up to speed with that sort of thing at the moment. Yeah, clarity, please.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will provide the full information in the packs, as that has been requested by 2 other elected members as well. Essentially, D365 or Dynamics 365 covers a lot of things the city uses under our Microsoft arrangements. It does include access to the new Axiom platform, as well as other parts of the Microsoft suite. So I'll take the question on notice and provide the full licence details in the packs.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on the list of payments? Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one. It's on page 232. It's EF 133780. It's from Freedom Ferries Pty Ltd. Those 2 items, one is for slime, fossil and DNA, 7,700, and one for 4 times face painters, 3,718. I'm just curious, obviously this might need to be taken on notice, what the activity was, and I'm also curious what type of process do we go from, whenever we require services from a company like Freedom Ferries, what is the process to make sure we're getting value for money? Thank you.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question. I believe that is in relation to the Little Feet Festival, which is an activity provided by the city on an annual basis. With regards to the quality assurance, there are staff members who are present when those events go ahead to ensure that the services that we've paid for are delivered in an appropriate manner, but I will take the question on notice and provide the details of exactly what's provided.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions on the list of payments? Councillor O'Neill.
Sorry, just picking up from Councillor Hutton's comment there, just in relation to the ferries. Has that charge appeared previously for similar events, and for what amounts?
Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take that question on notice and search by creditor and provide details where we've used that company before. It wouldn't surprise me we have. If we were aware of a quality provider of those sorts of activities, we will use them for more than one event.
Thank you. If you could, as well, the variances between costings per event, if we could get that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor. In that case, we'll move on to item 1211, the financial activity statements. Are there any questions? No. That brings us to the committee reports. So item 13.1.1, appointment of external member. No. 13.2.1, which we've dealt with already. 13.2.2, review of various local planning policies. 13.2.3, new draft residential local planning policy. 13.2.4, which we've dealt with as well. 13.2.5, proposed amendment to local planning scheme 3 on Delage Street, Joondalup. Then we move to major projects. 13.3.1, Joondalup Performing Arts Centre. And then over to the Special Audit and Risk Committee meeting, 13.4.1. No. Okay, in that case, the only reports left to discuss are the confidential reports. So I ask that we can then close the meeting to the public while we deal with those items. Thank you. Kylie, are we back on? Thank you. So the next item is reports of committees. So that concludes all the items on the agenda. So Mr. CEO, any further reports from committees?
At this stage, no.
Thank you. And then any reports from the Chief Executive Officer?
At this stage, I can advise that the following reports will be listed in the Council agenda for the meeting to be held next Tuesday, the 9th of December. Extraordinary election and job description form, Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And the next item is urgent business, which will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting if there are any urgent items. The final item is motions of which previous notice has been given. We've received 3 motions, one from Councillor O'Neill regarding elected member attendance, a second from Councillor Hutton regarding sister city relationships, a third from Councillor Venchulo for protections for elected members. And that's all the motions which I've received notice of. Are there any other announcements of motion for... Actually, no, we can't announce any more motions for this month's meeting. So in that case, I will close the briefing session at 8:31 p.m. Thank you everyone for attending.